Well, I've actually chosen two books, one of which was a massive influence on my beliefs about leadership at a fairly early stage in my career and shaped my beliefs about how leadership should be practiced. And that's a book called South by Ernest Shackleton, which is not a business book, but it's an account that Shackleton himself wrote about his journey to Antarctica in 1914. And it's a true story, of course. It's his account of that expedition, which those of you who know about it know that it was, in many respects, a disastrous failure. But what emerged from it was a remarkable story of endurance, of courage, but actually fundamentally of leadership. His expedition was intended to cross Antarctica. There were two ships. One ship went to a different part of Antarctica. His ship was caught in the ice and was stuck. And they spent 9 months on the ice, and ultimately the ship was destroyed. So he had to rescue and save the 28 men that he had responsibility for. And what really impressed me was the way that he was able to refocus on achievable goals, to adapt in the face of failure and catastrophe, in effect, and to find a way to get his men to safety. And in the first instance, they went to a place called Elephant Island, where they were able to at least make most of the men safe. And then he selected a crew that then sailed 800 miles in a 20-foot boat across the South Atlantic to get rescue. And what, in my mind, he emerges as is a thoroughly modern leader. You see him presenting visions of where he thinks they can go next or what they can achieve, and actually seeking people's buy-in. You can see him throughout the book seeking people's views, consulting people about how things should be done, and making sure that everybody buys into the next steps that need to be taken. He's acutely aware of his men's physical and mental well-health all the way through. And he's not afraid to change his mind and take advice. But then when the decision's made, he very much is part of the solution. And I remember reading it and just thinking, really, this is what a leader should be like. Somebody who is courageous, cares about people, and is able to take people on the journey they need to be taken on and achieve things against the odds. And that was always an inspiration to me. And I built that into a lot of work I did on leadership development, years ago. Coming up more up to date, the other book that really struck me, which I read about 5 years ago, was The 3 Levels of Leadership by James Schooler. And in a way, it made it much more tangible for me how you could actually develop leaders to be able to do the kind of things maybe Shackleton or other great leaders have been able to do. Because whereas many leadership theories have been focused on what leaders should do, or in many cases trait theories like what leaders should be or how they should try to be, what Schooler does is to deconstruct that a bit and to look at, well, how does a leader actually have to perform? And the 3 levels is quite simply, although in many ways it's quite a complex book, the concept fundamentally is very simple, which is, as a leader, you operate in a private space where you're one-to-one with a team member. You obviously operate in a public space, and I think a lot of leadership discourse and theory has been based on the public face of leadership. But also really powerfully, it focuses on personal leadership. And I think that is a real unlocker to growth and leadership development. And it's something I focused on a lot with people in more recent times. That when people start to understand their own profiles and are given tools and a vocabulary that they can use, they can start to understand themselves, they can open themselves up for feedback and development. And they become much more effective as a consequence. So I think fundamentally, if you don't understand yourself well, which is both about understanding what you do well, but as well as what you do less well, then it's difficult for you to develop. And I think that's why a lot of leadership development programs are less successful than they could be, because people don't understand themselves as they go into that. So for me, the 3 levels of leadership has been a really transformative, but kind of transformative concept, and one that we've worked with a lot. So those are my selections.